Hi everyone, and welcome to English for You. I'm Pat.
And I'm Mike.
And today we're getting into quite an interesting topic.
What is that?
It's basically the topic of cannabis.
Illegal drugs.
We are going to be talking about what is currently in Taiwan an illegal drug.
That's true, but not illegal in other parts of the world.
Exactly.
So it is an interesting situation.
Yeah, we're going to kind of look at some of the pros and cons of cannabis. We'll talk about how it's kind of viewed in different parts of the world.
Okay.
And if you've got our magazine, you'll also realize there is a For You debate. There's an activity For You debate section in the magazine. Okay, so as Mike and I are teaching, we might give you some extra facts or opinions that aren't already in the article.
Okay.
Make sure you write them down. If you think they're interesting, play back the video and listen to it again, because you could use these in the debate section in the magazine.
Absolutely. And like any good debate, it's not really clear which side you might take. You know, you might change your mind depending on new information. And this is something that a lot of places around the world, even when they're changing the law, people still have different opinions about. So it is a good topic for a debate.
Okay, so let's read through the first day of our article about cannabis and find out more about what's going on.
Reading.
The world's changing attitudes toward cannabis. You've seen hundreds of herbs and plants in Chinese medicine shops. But there's one traditional medicine doctors can't give you: cannabis, also called marijuana or weed. The use of cannabis as a medicine goes back thousands of years. A Tang Dynasty doctor used cannabis juice to treat the pain from broken bones. A book from the Song Dynasty, the illustrated classic of Materia Medica, talks about the benefits of cannabis for qi, or increasing blood flow. Other Chinese doctors use this substance for treating mental illness and symptoms similar to epilepsy. They were onto something. As cannabis is becoming widely accepted around the world, its medical benefits are becoming well known in Western medicine. Many governments recognize one of cannabis's main ingredients, CBD, as an effective treatment for epilepsy. Western doctors also find CBD useful for treating anxiety, depression, pain, and sleep problems. Many fans of cannabis say it connects their minds and bodies while letting them understand the world in new ways. But it is still a drug, and all drugs have negative features. Let's discuss those next.
So our article begins and says you've seen hundreds of herbs and plants in Chinese medicine shops. Now, this word herb is an interesting one. I'm not pronouncing it the way I normally would. In the UK, we say herb, and we pronounce that H. In the States, they tend to say herb and leave off the H sound. In Canada, they would...
Are confused.
Oh,
People in
okay.
Canada often do say herb like North Americans, like Americans would, but you might also hear herb depending on where your parents came from, what part of the country you're from. But yeah, basically for North America, herb would be more common. Herb is actually a name. It would be short for Herbert.
Herbert.
So there's that might be used more as a name in North America, but herb would be those plants that we add to food for flavor.
Exactly. Whatever you say, herb or herb, it's a part of a plant or a whole plant. It could be the seeds, the leaves, the flowers that's used in cooking, in perfume, or in medicine. So think of things like basil, oregano, parsley, willow bark.
Absolutely.
Which makes a lot of painkillers.
Cilantro.
Things like that.
Yeah, there you go. But there's one traditional medicine doctors can't give you. We read cannabis, also called marijuana or weed, to give it one of its many nicknames. That's why we put that in the quotes. But cannabis or marijuana, those are sort of the more scientific names. And yeah, if you go to a Chinese medicine shop here in Taiwan, they would have lots of things that you might take for your sickness or your problem, but cannabis, marijuana, these are not available, or weed to use that expression. Right, so lots of different names there. Cannabis, marijuana, weed, that's kind of a nickname for it. Now, we often use these words sort of interchangeably. You can call it whatever you want. People generally understand what you mean no matter what word you use. But technically, if you talk to a scientist or someone who studies the plant, cannabis is the plant. Marijuana is what you do when you dry out the leaves and that kind of thing. And weed would be a nickname, so one of those common nicknames that people might have when they're talking about it in a casual way. Now, it can be prepared lots of ways. When places where it's legal these days, you can get drinks, you can get it cooked and stuff. I have no idea the other ways, but there are lots of ways to do it. But we often use these words interchangeably, so don't worry too much about picking the right word, because people understand lots of different versions of the word to talk about the same thing.
So that is the plant, and it's got a long history. We see in the article that the use of cannabis as a medicine goes back thousands of years. Now, we use the phrase goes back to say how old something is, and we kind of give a date or a time or how far back it is, so to when people first discovered or started using or found a particular thing. So goes back thousands of years means its use is thousands of years old. It started thousands of years ago. And we have a couple of examples of that.
Yeah, and actually, according to history, it goes back to also sort of this general part of the world. It says a Tang Dynasty doctor, that's the Tang Dynasty in ancient China, used cannabis juice to treat the pain from broken bones. So they probably have some writing or, something like that from a long time ago that says thousands of years ago during the Tang Dynasty, Chinese doctors were already using it as a painkiller.
Right. Yeah. And here's another example, a book from the Song Dynasty. And this is the name of the book, The Illustrated Classic of Materia Medica.
My favorite book.
Talks about the benefits of cannabis for qi, or increasing the blood flow.
Oh,
so
really?
Materia Medica basically means it'll be a list of all the different plants and animal parts they're going to use as medicine, things they can use to cure people, to help people, to stop them feeling pain, to make them breathe easier, and all that kind of stuff.
So from looking at the history of Chinese medicine, we see that cannabis has been used for a long time in lots of different ways. And there's more. Other Chinese doctors use this substance for treating mental illness and symptoms similar to epilepsy. That's a sort of neurological thing that people are born with, and you sort of shake, you might fall down, you have these seizures. It can be very serious, and it can stop people from sort of leading a sort of normal life because they always have the chance of falling down and having a seizure. But if you can control the seizures, it makes life easier for people with epilepsy. So as you can see, lots of different usages from the history of Chinese medicine for this cannabis, this substance. And here a substance is basically stuff. It's a material. It's something that exists out there in the world. It could be a natural thing, all right? Wool is a substance that we use to make warm clothing. It could be something man-made. Plastic is a substance that is made in factories, and we, make bottles and other things out of it. But basically, we're talking about a material. Often that material is used to then make something else. And if there's something unknown, you can say, what is that substance at the bottom of the fridge? It smells and it's moving. I don't know what that substance is. So it's something that you're dealing with, looking at, using, often to do something else with this material, this substance. For example, the scientist took the unknown substance to the lab so they could test it. It's an alien.
Oh my goodness. So one of the things that cannabis was used to treat and help people with was mental illnesses. Mental illnesses are illnesses of the mind. That is what mental means. It's an adjective meaning anything to do with the mind. It's often contrasted with physical. A physical illness would be a cold, a broken arm, heart disease. A mental illness would be some other problem that you have with your mind, your moods, your thoughts, that kind of thing. Here's another example. Simon is not a fan of physical sports. He likes more mental games like chess or Go.
And we also had this word symptom. Now, this is a noun, and it's a word that we often use when talking about being sick or visiting a doctor or something like that. A symptom is basically a sign in your body of a disease or a sickness or something like that, all right? I don't have to tell you what I'm sick with, but if I tell you my symptoms, well, my nose is running, I can't breathe very well,
okay.
I've been coughing a lot, I have a sore throat, every time I blow my nose, all this stuff comes out.
Okay,
so
I was
what
worried.
would you say that I have based on those symptoms?
I was worried it was going to be a bit of coronavirus.
No.
But because you said all that stuff about nose running and stuff, I think you just got a cold.
No, I have a broken leg. No,
What?
of course I have a cold. The symptoms of a broken leg would have nothing to do with my nose or throat or blowing my nose.
Yes.
It would mean I can't walk and it
Right.
hurts a lot. All right, so those symptoms, now obviously if you have a broken leg, you won't really need to explain your symptoms. It's probably quite clear. But if it's inside your body, all right, if it's inside and you visit the doctor, he says, "What's wrong with you?" You'll describe your symptoms, and that leads the doctor to a diagnosis, diagnosis, which basically is you have a cold. You have this. That's the diagnosis, and they get it from listening to your symptoms.
Yeah, symptoms have got to be things that either you can describe or anybody can easily see. It's not something that you would have to run a blood test for. That is a different thing.
No.
The doctors would call that a sign as opposed to a symptom that you can see or hear or feel. Okay, one of the diseases we did mention was epilepsy. Mike covered this before. It's a disorder of the nerves and the nervous system. The brain kind of acts in an abnormal way, and people have attacks or seizures where they lose control of their bodies, they lose consciousness, and it often involves their bodies shaking a lot. So these are all the things that Chinese medicine and Chinese medical doctors use cannabis for.
That's right, and as we continue reading, it says they were onto something. Interesting. So apparently these ancient Chinese doctors were onto something. To be onto something basically means you're on the right path to finding the solution. You're going in the right direction. You're picking up the right clues. You're making the right sort of guesses based on what you know. You're not headed off into the wrong answer, the wrong direction to waste your time. No, you're heading towards the right answer, the right direction. So, you know, if a police officer is looking into a crime and they find some fingerprints and they find some hair and they link the fingerprints and the hair to the same person, oh, now we're on to something because it looks like this person would be involved, all right? It's not confusing, it's not giving them the wrong messages, it's giving them the right messages and leading them in the right direction. So basically, they're saying that these doctors using cannabis to treat different body problems, different health problems, they were doing the right kind of thing.
Yeah, and as we see, as cannabis is becoming widely accepted around the world, its medical benefits are becoming well known in Western medicine.
Hundreds and thousands of years later.
Yeah, so they're
Very
kind of
interesting.
Western medicine is now going, okay, yes, we can use cannabis to do certain things, as we see here.
That's right. We read many governments, that's around the world, many governments recognize one of cannabis's main ingredients, CBD. That's sort of the chemical name, but we shorten it to those three letters, CBD, as an effective treatment for epilepsy. So if you're born with epilepsy, you may be taking a medicine, or a doctor may recommend you try this CBD stuff that comes from cannabis. It's recognized as something that could help, all right? So when you recognize something, this verb, well, simply it could mean I look at something and I know what it is. We use it kind of like identify, all right? So if I show you a picture of someone famous and you know who that is, you say, hey, that's Michael Jordan. I recognize him. I've seen the face. I can put a name to it. I know that thing. We also use it sort of when we pay attention to something and note its features or note its good features. When someone wins an award, when they win an Oscar, a movie or singing award, that's basically giving them the prize to recognize, to sort of acknowledge and salute and give credit to them for doing something really good. We're not ignoring it. It didn't pass us by without us paying attention. No, we noticed it, we saw that it was good, and now we want to sort of show that we appreciate it. For example, we're going back to the original here, original meaning of the word. Do you recognize the little boy in this picture? Do you know who it is?
And what's being recognized here is the usefulness, CBD, isn't it? The usefulness of that. And that's an ingredient in cannabis. An ingredient is one particular part of something, and it's often used for something we can eat. A dish you cook has a number of ingredients. But we can also use this word to mean the distinct parts that make up a whole of something. So we could say teamwork is an important ingredient of success.
Oh, okay. In the same way that flour and sugar are important ingredients of a cake, teamwork, communication, cooperation, those are the ingredients of doing something successful as a group. All right, back to modern medicine. Western doctors, it says, so doctors in the Western medicine tradition, these could be Chinese doctors, Taiwanese, Japanese doctors, but they're not doing ancient Chinese medicine. They're doing sort of modern Western hospital-style medicine. Western doctors also find CBD useful for treating anxiety, depression, pain, and sleep problems. So
that's plenty.
All sorts of things that this drug could help us with. Anxiety being the first one, I believe, on that list we just read. What is anxiety? Well, it's a noun. Anxiety is a problem that you'll have generally in your mind that then affects your body, all right? Anxiety is basically being worried, stressed out, nervous all the time. We all experience it. When something important in your life is happening, you might feel anxiety before a big exam, if you're moving to a new house, if you're getting married and your life is going to change in so many ways. That can cause stress and anxiety, but some people can't turn it off. Even when their life is simple and happy and there's nothing strange or complicated going on, they always feel nervous. Something bad could happen. It's not happening now, but it's probably going to happen soon. I can't deal with this. You have an upset stomach, maybe you can't sleep well, your hair's falling out if it gets really bad. This kind of anxiety can be a big problem for people who can't stop it, who can't turn it off. For example, the big exam is tomorrow and right now I'm filled with anxiety. That would be normal. If 3 days after the exam you're still filled with anxiety, that might be more of a problem.
So another problem that we think cannabis can help with is depression. This is a mental condition or an illness, and it's displayed as deep and long-lasting feelings of sadness, uselessness, guilt, not being good enough, and so on. And if you've got depression, this is associated with things like lack of energy, problems with eating and sleeping, and even feelings of suicide.
Okay, so let's get back to what other people might be saying about how cannabis affects them. It says many fans of cannabis say it connects their minds and bodies while letting them understand the world in new ways. Interesting. So it gives them a different way of thinking. It kind of gives them a different point of view on the world that they might not normally get without using this substance.
Yeah, well, they're stoned, aren't they?
Possibly.
There we go.
Connect, this verb means to join together. It connects their mind and their body. It kind of makes them feel different, as if they can sort of understand themselves even better, as if their mind and body have this better connection. Because to connect is to join together, to link things together, all right? Something simple to think of when you connect things together. Think of a train, all right? If you have a train, you're going to have the engine, the part that drives the train or pulls the train, and all of those other carriages carrying people or things or animals or oil or whatever, and you connect all of those cars together. You join them together to make something new and bigger and whole. For example, here's another good way we connect things in our normal lives. If we plug in the printer and then connect it to the computer, it should work. Right?
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, however, all of this is good, but we're going to finish today's article with a bit of a negative. It says, but it is still a drug. Cannabis is a drug, and all drugs have negative features. A feature is something that's special about a thing. It's something that we note about that thing. We identify it and kind of recognize it, to use a word from earlier, as being a part of that thing. Something this thing has, something this thing does. Here's an example. This car comes with many cool features like Wi-Fi and GPS. So cannabis it's a drug, drugs have negative features.
That's true. You know, even drugs that do us good, they can have other bad features or bad effects for
drug and poison, you know, medicine, poison, it's just kind of too much of one and it becomes the other thing.
Possibly. All right. So yes, as it says, let's discuss those next. Meaning tomorrow, we're going to be talking about some of the not so good parts or the not so good sides of cannabis. Should be very interesting, and it'll give you more things to think about and talk about if you have a debate.
All right, and let's go now to today's chat question.
For you chat.
So one thing we haven't mentioned yet about cannabis, and we don't actually get to it tomorrow, it's its legal state, whether it's legal or not legal or somewhere in between. So let's take the countries that we're from or we live in as an example. So Taiwan, cannabis is illegal pretty much across the board. You can get in serious trouble just for smoking one marijuana cigarette.
All right.
If you grow it, you could go to jail. I think there's even the death penalty as a possibility.
Wow, that is serious. And it's also kind of surprising because in Canada, another country in the world, it's totally legal now.
That happened recently.
It's only been a year or a little more than a year, but basically you can go out to a store and buy some cannabis like you would go out to a store and buy a bottle of wine or something like that. You have to be over 18. You have to go to special stores to buy it. And apart from that, I don't know. I haven't been home in a while. Few years.
But
I know
Canada
it is
a couple of years ago.
It is
you
available.
Could see it, you could smell it on the streets. You kind of realized that people could smoke it and it wasn't too much of a big deal.
And if the police find you with it, well, you'll probably have no trouble at all because it is not considered dangerous or illegal. So it's very interesting that these two countries have very, very different opinions and attitudes and laws about this drug. And what about the UK? What about Britain?
Well, we're sort of in the middle. It was for a while back in the 2000s, they'd made it less criminal so that police wouldn't, if the people saw someone smoking, a policeman wouldn't go and do anything about it. If you happen to have a tiny bit in your pocket, they wouldn't do anything about it. But if you were kind of selling it on a major scale or selling it around schools, then they would kind of come down on that.
I see.
But then they made it a bit more illegal again more recently. And again, I think policemen will let people off just for having a tiny amount. But it's more illegal than it used to be. And we're not any closer to getting it illegal, to making it legal or making it less criminal to have or to use it. Okay, that's all the time we've got for today, but join us again tomorrow. We're going to talk about some of the downsides, the other bad things about cannabis. See you then. Bye for now.
The world's changing attitudes toward cannabis. You've seen hundreds of herbs and plants in Chinese medicine shops, but there's one traditional medicine doctors can't give you: cannabis, also called marijuana or weed. The use of cannabis as a medicine goes back thousands of years. A Tang Dynasty doctor used cannabis juice to treat the pain from broken bones. A book from the Song Dynasty, the illustrated classic of Materia Medica, talks about the benefits of cannabis for qi, or increasing blood flow. Other Chinese doctors used this substance for treating mental illness and symptoms similar to epilepsy. They were onto something. As cannabis is becoming widely accepted around the world, its medical benefits are becoming well known in Western medicine. Many governments recognize one of cannabis's main ingredients, CBD, as an effective treatment for epilepsy. Western doctors also find CBD useful for treating anxiety, depression, pain, and sleep problems. Many fans of cannabis say it connects their minds and bodies while letting them understand the world in new ways. But it is still a drug, and all drugs have negative features. Let's discuss those next.
Vocabulary Review. Substance. The athlete was not allowed to play sports for 1 year because he had taken an illegal substance to make himself stronger. Mental. Jim was so stressed from work that he took a long vacation to improve his mental health. Recognize. Sally thought she was lost until she recognized the cafe she had recently visited. Anxiety. With fewer customers coming into his store, Ben had anxiety about the future of his business. Connect. My phone didn't charge last night because I forgot to connect it to the power cable. Feature. A tall flagpole is a common feature found at the entrances at schools.
字汇小补帖
Herb. Herb. Cannabis. Symptom. Epilepsy. Ingredient. Depression.
以上节目是由活用空中美语制作，活用空中美语杂志，请洽询全国各大书店。如欲索取试听教材，请来电02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000，或上网查询，网址是 www.english4u.net www.english4u.net